Welcome to Teams Tuesday, a podcast about mastering the best about what other people have already figured out. Teams Tuesday focuses on insights and lessons that never expire. You will walk away from every episode with actionable insights that help you get better results and be more productive.
This was about as darn easy as it gets.
The client just couldn't make up their mind.
I feel like we had top.
Went from a project of 20 weeks to just 2.
The DevOps was a cultural shift.
This is Teams Tuesday with your host, Peter Ward.
Welcome to Teams Tuesday. It's May 2023, and I'm your host, Peter Ward, hosting from New York City, and we've got a great guest speaker here, Ritu Huda. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Peter.
Okay, and you're coming in from South Dakota. Okay, so I'm assuming the weather is rather cold there these days in the winter.
You know what? Yes, in the winter. This time of the year, it's a perfect weather. Right now, it's in 70s, and that's the best time of the year to South Dakota.
You work for First Bank and Trust, and what's your role at First Bank and Trust?
I work as a senior SharePoint and Power Platform architect at First Bank and Trust. It has been quite a journey, yes.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean quite a journey? What does that supposed to mean?
I started at, okay, let me go a little back. I came to United States as a student, and then I was hired at South Dakota State as a .NET developer. Mainly the job was automation of instruments. And then I started my PhD program here at South Dakota State. And that's when I met Dr. Kurt. He was the department head there. And he said, Ritu, you have such a wonderful experience in computer science. I have a better place for you. And I was like, what, you don't want me to do PhD or what? And he said, you should apply for a position at First Bank and Trust. That was a database developer position. And I had a conversation with my husband. You know what? I am too much into PhD, and should I be actually even applying for that? And he said, oh, you won't be hired anyway. Just, go for an interview process. I was like, okay. So, yeah, I gave the first interview. They called me for second interview. And that's when, again, my husband said, oh, no, they finalized a couple of people. So don't worry, you won't get this job. Go for your second interview. And I got hired as a database developer. And that's when my husband said, you got a great job. Go and do a job if you want. I was like, okay, let me try both. So I tried both PhD and the job for first 2 semesters. And that's when I realized it's getting too much. And my passion is more in the computer industry anyway. And that's when I decided, well, okay, let me do the database developer job. But then after 2 years, my manager and one other manager came and said, Ritu, are you interested in SharePoint? I was like,
what's that?
Yeah, I was like, well, I haven't used SharePoint. And they said, don't worry about that. We will make sure you know everything about it. And then my position was more database developer 50% and then SharePoint admin 50%. And then within 2 years, we were ready for migration. And that's when my manager said, well, you need to pick one. I know you like both of them. So, yeah, I picked SharePoint and then kept moving forward, did migration, build solutions within SharePoint. And now we are very much focused going towards the cloud.
Yes. So the topic today is migration strategies at SharePoint. So you probably started in SharePoint 2010, I suspect. All on-prem, WSPs, going into the cloud. What are the sort of mistakes that people generally make, high level?
Some of the mistakes, especially in very intensive environment like that, try to go to the cloud over a weekend. It does not work in our scenario. We have over-engineered SharePoint. We have tons of solutions. We use ETL loads, bring in data to SharePoint, push and pull, and then do a lot of reporting. So doing a migration over a weekend was not a thing for us. And that's where we started very small, where we were more comfortable with the IT side, We were technology people. We understand technology. And I think that's where we thought, well, let's start with technology because it has InfoPath forms, workflows, it has custom solutions, but to a very small extent. And that's why we decided to start pretty small.
Right. That makes perfect sense on that. One of the things, you're absolutely right, when SharePoint's been customized, you've got classic going to modern, you've got WSPs, you've got tons of custom code, it becomes a real big science project. And of course, none of it is really properly documented and no one really understands what's going on kind of thing. And there's always a few surprises.
Yep, absolutely.
Right, on this. All right, you've got a few presentations you're going to share with us, aren't you, on this topic?
I am going to share a lot of our struggles that we had when we even started thinking about going to the cloud.
Okay.
As a banking, we are a banking institution, so it's definitely makes it a little bit more harder. All these compliance and regulations, and then going through the due diligence, all these processes are pretty intense, going through a security committee approval, because security is our top priority in our organization and in every organizations, I think. And banks were not overly comfortable with going to the cloud. We wanted to control everything ourselves, We wanted to manage our environment. We wanted to control the search, when and how we should be searching, what content people should be searching. So that's why it was kind of a very hard sell, even to begin with. Nobody was happy. Nope, we don't want to go to the cloud. We are not sure if our data will be secure or not. So that was definitely my biggest challenge. And then, some of the struggles, as I mentioned, we have a huge environment, over 1 terabyte of data, over more than 200 solutions, a lot of workflows.
You mentioned security. I'm assuming, though, you're working with the infrastructure team and they've ring-fenced the security around the SharePoint, like IP addresses, the Azure cloud, and the environment, or hadn't that just been done?
Well, that was not done. Well, we were not on Azure AD to begin with. Our Exchange was also on-prem, so everything was on-prem, and that's why everything was so new to us. There was a lot to look for, how is the security when we think about cloud? Is our environment going to be secure? We did not even know the answers to these questions to begin with. That's where more of our struggle came. And then we started digging more what licensing we should go with, E3, E5, So there was a lot to learn. That's what I would say. We were more traditional and on-prem people to begin with.
Right. So were you getting rid of the info path? Because when it comes to migration, is it a straight lift? I think the key thing I've always found is setting the objective and setting the expectations. Is this a straight lift and shift, or are we actually re-engineering stuff as well? And that's where it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, in the past, we had always done lift and shift migration, where you test your content database, make sure everything is good, and then, detach, attach, and upgrade your environment, set up your servers. But we are putting a lot more thought when we are going to the cloud this time. We don't have to worry about future updates or anything. So we want to make sure we have clean data when we are moving to the cloud. That requires a lot of work for our power users, for our various departments to do a data cleanup in the right way. We are changing some of the things strategically, Like we have our one-on-one sites as a custom meeting workspaces in the past. And we always struggle with those custom templates.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, I've done migrations. I think we went from 2010 to 2013, and workspaces was not available in the version. So it's it's not only understanding the inventory, but it's also understanding what are people using, because it may not be around actually in the new version. Yes, I've made that mistake.
Yeah, a lot of outdated web parts. And so we decided to go with Teams. We'll talk more about, when we'll be talking about our strategies. What is the best approach now? Should we try reinventing the wheel, try to fix those custom templates, or should we just start using Teams? It's simple, and a better collaboration platform. some of the other things, classic pages, we'll have to convert all those classic pages to modern. That was also a good time for us to think about, do we actually need those solutions? Is there a better way to handle these things? You will laugh, but some of our InfoPath forms has more than 800 rules. Do we really need those 800 rules?
Well, yes, the skyscraper performance. We actually had a retreat in our company a few weeks ago, and we were talking about keeping, one of the sessions was actually on simplicity. Like, people always want to add features, add fails, and nobody wants to actually remove. Very rarely am I actually in a meeting where people are removing functionality. That everyone wants to add functionality rather than remove it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, as I said, we have tons of custom solutions. In the past, we have over-engineered SharePoint. We tried to make like a full-fledged solution out of SharePoint, which is not always a bad thing. But then there is a lot of customization behind the scenes. Do we actually need all that customization? This is a great time to think about. We are moving to Salesforce. Should we be keeping any customer data here, or Salesforce is a better place? So those are all the other decisions we are making as we are moving to the cloud.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other thing as well, it's where in 2010 people were generally accessing their information on a PC. Come 2013, 14, 15, 16, it's now on tablets. It's also on smartphones as well. Okay, and then of course, come 2018, Teams started being pushed out. So, I know you had Yammer up until that, but then as ever, there was more options in terms of Yammer, Teams, or SharePoint.
Yeah, we never used Yammer though. The only one thing I feel, we would have launched Teams a little bit more strategically rather than, when COVID happened, everybody rushed up on Teams, and we did run into a bunch of issues at that time too, like resource contention. Everything was super slow when everybody started using Teams. People didn't know what to do. There was no governance. So a lot of those things, those were additional struggles.
And there's also like Teams etiquette, like things like have your camera on. Okay, things like remember you're going to be on mute. Okay, so like things like have two screens. Okay, so therefore you can sharing of screens, information, little things which sort of like you take for granted, but they're actually very important. So what we've said, like if in like an interview, if someone comes in for an interview, the way they address their handshake, these are data points that you're making decisions on. Of course, in a Teams interview, you're still making decisions based on the data points, but the data points are different. Like, don't take the interview in Starbucks, be in an office. Okay, perhaps even wear a collared shirt, even though you are at home. Sweatpants doesn't really work too well on that. So these are the little things. And also with instant messaging, okay, just because somebody is not responding to an IM does not mean you're not important. Okay, it means that they haven't got to it just yet.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there is a lot to learn actually when we started with Teams. You can change your background like I did, you don't have to show all the messy things behind the scenes.
Well, the virtual backgrounds, yes. Well, that's the other thing as well. Like, do you want virtual backgrounds with your logo on, or do you keep it personal, on that front? In terms of the migrations, okay, and some of the questions I sent you, okay, you so like I said, what sort of like one of the things is, as I mentioned, describe a complete train wreck SharePoint project. Okay, and you've got configuring hybrid federated search. Okay, what happened here?
So that was one decision I regret a little bit. I personally think maybe I should have gone just with the cloud search, because Microsoft has invested a lot of time into that. But because we wanted to control search ourselves, there are a lot of our business units where search is really critical. They wanted search up all the time. And I wasn't again sure how Microsoft search works, and is it always up and running? That's where I wanted more control, and I wanted to have it on my servers, on-prem servers. So we decided to go with federated hybrid search, but there was missing documentation. It was not straightforward. There was one or the other issues we would run into. It will populate results on the SharePoint Online side, then it won't populate result on the SharePoint on-prem side. we were never able to make it working how we wanted to make it work. We had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 Microsoft cases when we were working on that. So something that could have been done in like 10 days, it took us more than 2 months to just, yes. Whereas with the cloud hybrid search, I think would have been much better. That's something I still regret.
Right. In terms of Microsoft, where do you think they're sort of like going in terms of their M365 strategy?
I personally like, if you'll ask me about where Microsoft is going, I think they're doing a wonderful job when it comes to collaboration and then combining all those things, video meeting, file storage, app integration into a single workspace. It does allow individuals to communicate in a good fashion. Everything is right there. You can drop files right there. Everything is at one same place. So that's definitely one of my favorite part, communication, collaboration, and organization. The one thing that I definitely struggle is their pricing and licensing model. I wish there can be a little bit more optimization on that side.
Well, there's always been many flavors of it. Like I know even some Microsoft partners even specialize in pricing Microsoft licensing software. And so you got the E3 and some users of an E5 and E3. It's always been a little bit complicated. Of course, now when you see the bills come in on the subscription bills, you think, wow, that's a lot of money on that. But yes, that cost optimization, that is something which I have heard that. It's not necessarily a complaint, but more like an observation that people talk about cost optimization of the licenses.
Right. And again, one other struggle that was also part of my struggle was initially we were like, oh my God, it will be really expensive because we are migrating from InfoPath forms to Power Platform. But as we started using it, we realized, the custom forms, we don't have to pay for that, although still we will be using Power Apps for that. So that was a simple thing, but there is no clear documentation anywhere for those things. I think that would actually help in adoption if people know more to start with what they had to pay for.
Well, true. The other thing as well, what would help is that if you, and it's difficult to get this from the users, the customer or the end user, is that where's the endpoint? Because you start off with a straight custom form, simple form with 5 fields. And the next thing you know, it's got 15, 20 fields. Okay. And instead of having 2 columns, it's all in 1 column. Then you want some validation on this whole thing, and they want, so where this form's a bit too long, maybe we should have in sections and some business rules that basically close and open up certain sections. And it's almost like, how come we didn't know this like 3 months ago when we started this whole process? And even though you gave me a cast iron agreement that this was basically exactly what it was, a simple form and it was simple workflow. Okay, this seems to be, it's amazing how it goes into something rather more complicated. In terms of other strategies, what do you got other migration strategies to the cloud? Like where would you typically start in a first like kickoff meeting with the business?
So I think before the business meeting, also there is a lot of prep work that you need to do. That's where we initially started with either PowerShell script or started looking at some of the migration tool where we can do an initial inventory, of what our environment looks like today. How much data we have, how many web applications we have, how many site collections we have, how many InfoPath forms, workflows. We heavily use ETL loads, which is extraction, transform, and load data. We use a lot of them to push and pull data within SharePoint. And then again, we use a lot of reporting as well. So we would need a good inventory of all of those things that are in our SharePoint environment. The next thing that I feel was really important is the customization. Again, as I said, we are intensive users of SharePoint. We have done a lot of customization within our environment. So you need to identify all of those things to begin with so there are no surprises in the end. So before even starting the business unit meetings, we actually have a good visual of this is our whole environment looks like. How many forms you have, do you have 1, 2 SharePoint forms or more than that? And then we started digging a little bit more deeper in terms of simplicity. What where should we start with? So it still covers pretty much all of the issues that we may run into, because then if I start with bigger business units where the impact is more, we already know that these are the problems we may run into. But yeah, going back to your point, before the business meetings, I want to have a good inventory and assessment of my environment. And then that's when we'll start the conversation with the business units, asking them, are you still using all of these solutions? Let's say we have 20 solutions within one business unit, and they may come up with, no, these 5 are outdated. So there is no point of converting them, to Power Platform. So that's where I would start with, these are the orphan sites. Nobody's using those sites. Do you guys still want us to move these sites on the cloud? Some of those questions, I think I would definitely start with.
What I particularly with SharePoint in terms of like a requirements document is that I always like say like this document has been a result of the meetings with the following people. So when people are looking at this document, they know who I've spoken to, and they can then realize, wait a minute here, so you've missed out a department here, or you need to speak out to these other people. So at the end of the day, you like, it's not just looking at, okay, this is what the end result is, but this is how you got to the end result, and these are the people who you spoke to.
So we have a wonderful department called Change Management within our organization. I am utilizing those departments to identify the key people. And also we have something called a SharePoint user group within our organization. We meet monthly as a group. And then, so from every department, we have one power user who knows, who knows a lot about SharePoint, so they are our actually starting points, hey, check with your department, who will be the key people, who are the decision makers. I think that is such a big time saver when we have all the inventory, we have assessed the environment, and we have all the key people from that one department in the same room. We have the doers, we have the decision makers, so we don't have to do a back and forth emails over and over to get answers to some of those questions. We will schedule a 4-hour meeting with those people in one stretch and try to go over the inventory. We'll make the decisions right over there, and then we will perform the work. That's the plan.
Yeah. So I've seen this technique in other companies where they have like a SharePoint captain, okay, who's really like a power user, but an evangelical person to basically be communicating information about what the business groups are doing to IT and IT to the other person. I've definitely seen that, like an engagement, the engagement part, the business transformation manager. I have seen that, yes, many times in organizations. In terms of, okay, getting stuck, like I'm just looking at some of the questions and your answers. In terms of like when you've done the migration, what's been the general, where are people generally like upset here, or actually very pleased? Okay, so let's just start with the positive first. Okay, you go because of course you go from on-prem to the cloud, and of course there is some slight changes going on. Okay, and like nobody likes to change unless it actually values them, helps them out. So okay, like yeah, we're gonna help you, but you of need to change your business, your behavior. No one really likes that. What are when you're going in from the cloud? Okay, what are the sort of like the nice tick in the box stuff that people really like?
You are absolutely right. Who likes change? No one. Change is hard, and that was our fundamental reason actually to start with IT site. Where we can actually show it to people, hey, this is what we have done. So IT site is not strictly IT. We have most of the request forms, temporary network access removal, all those requests that applies to whole organization. So we want to give whole organization a little bit feel that, hey, this is what it looks like, it's different, but maybe you'll start liking it more. The hub navigation, which I really love the global navigation when it comes to hub architecture. We did implement all of those things in the IT side. And our next move is actually intranet, which again, everybody in the organization will be using. Some of the things that people really like was global navigation. So they don't have to worry about their links, where they are going. They can follow through very easily. News web part, I don't know. There are kind of mixed feelings. Some people still like the traditional announcement because they think it's simple and they don't have to keep on clicking to multiple pages. They see all the information nice and clean right in one place. Whereas the other group of people are more excited to see, oh yeah, it looks pretty cool. We can, have images and then more information. So there's kind of a mixed response. Some people like the modern pages, whereas some were like, we hate it. It's like a thing where some people like some of the functionality, whereas others are like, nope, we don't want to change. But I think as long as we have a plan and we communicate correctly within the organization over and over, we plan to do some training. We have a training platform, so we'll kind of do some recordings when people will post the news on the intranet, how they are going to do that, what things are going to change. So we are kind of, user adoption is a big thing for us. It will be slow, but that's where we are going with that.
Have you replaced your InfoPower forms with Power Apps, with the Power Platform?
Yes, for IT side, we have to do that. I don't know what other option we have. We did custom forms to begin with. Again, we identify we'll have to convert 15, but then we realize 3 or 4 people are not using it. And so technically speaking, we will have to just make only one full-fledged Power Apps from IT side. Rest all our custom forms using Power Platform.
Okay. Yeah. Because and the other thing as well, are you migrating, what functionality are you migrating in from SharePoint into Teams?
One-on-one sites, all the one-on-one sites are going away. They used to be in SharePoint. Again, we thought it's too much work on us whenever there's a new hire. We will have to set up everything for them because they are all custom template. We will have to use some migration tool to migrate. But now with Teams, they can create their own one-on-one site. So it's actually a little bit relaxation on our side. We don't have to worry about that. We have to do some trainings with people, but other than that, it's going pretty smooth and people are liking it.
Right. Yep. Okay. I'm just looking at some of your best and worst tech advice. The best advice you received was taking server snapshots before making many changes. Yes, that probably saved the day a few times. What's the typical backup? So are you using a third-party one like Veeam or Backify or something? What do you
VMware backups. Yep, we use VMware backups.
Veeam is very, very good. Yeah, because the other thing as well with SharePoint, I think 2010, or it might have been 2007, when you did a restore, you had to restore the entire site collection. So of course, the CFO deletes one file, and you need to basically restore the entire, and that could take 4 or 5 hours. So Veeam was a very good backup and restore one. And it says your worst advice on the flip side was that I had to do an IIS reset when the issue as a SharePoint was on-prem environment. Is this when you deploy like a WSP and you have to do an IIS reset, and of course central admin disappears for a few seconds and you have this heartbeat wondering, is it going to come back? Is this what you're referring to?
Well, what I'm referring to is, remember I said in my story when I shared, my manager came and asked, hey, do you want to do SharePoint? And I started communicating with some people, and this one person said, well, if nothing works and you are in a panic mode, just do IIS reset. And I was like, I'm going to know what the problem is though if I just do IIS reset, And then I started going to the conferences and I shared this with one experienced speaker, and he said, nope, never do that.
Yeah, well, partly what I just saw, like, if you do the IIS reset, basically you're turning it off and turning it back on again, aren't you? Basically.
Right.
Okay. The other thing as well with the with like I said, with central ad, I was always a bit nervous with the whole central admin. Okay. Now PowerShell, you can do stuff in PowerShell, but PowerShell wasn't really anything what it was like 10, 12 years ago on there. The other thing as well, when you're in a production environment, you've got a lot of monitoring tools that are monitoring sites going down, like the website or intranets. So you do an IIS reset, the help desk goes crazy, is because all of these alerts are coming up saying this is not available.
Yep. Oh my God. Yeah, you'll get like 200 alerts within our environment, and people do go crazy. What's going on here? Yeah, I don't recall I have done actually IIS reset other than cumulative updates. When we apply cumulative updates, that's the only time I think. But Yeah, that was definitely the worst advice. But going back to the backups, we actually started using Cohesity, and we also use SharePoint backup and restore solution. So we can do a file level restore. You don't have to do a full site collection restore. Docker backup tool is pretty good.
Veeam does that, and so does Backify. They all do that now. And also, generally, the IT department wants a single backup and restore solution for everything: the network drive, SharePoint, SQL, it all basically.
And we are moving to Cohesity for that. But again, I'm still testing Cohesity for. I think we were not able to do granular restores with that. You can still do a site level restore with Cohesity, but not granular restores.
Right. Yep. On that, and it says, and you're always looking for new challenges in your leadership strategic vision of SharePoint, Power Platform, and Teams. Are you looking at any sort of Copilot stuff at the moment?
I did test it. Did you say Copilot?
I said Copilot, but I think you tested ChatGPT. Is that what you're? I said Copilot, but your answer was ChatGPT. Is that correct?
Well, ChatGPT is so popular. Yes. Yeah, I have tried some of those things, but I don't trust a whole lot at this point. There is still a level of, I have been hearing some people saying that ChatGPT will take our jobs, but the way I think is, if you use it wisely, it can actually help you in your jobs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, compliment. It's a compliment.
Yeah, that's what I think. I have been using it a little bit for developing my strategic plan too. It gives you actually the basic bullet points, and then you can build at the top of them.
Right. Okay. Very, very cool. I'm just looking at sort of like in terms of the ChatGPT, it's quite good for some of our developers are using it to find code solutions actually. So in the past, you would do a bit of Google, but code solutions are been quite popular. All right, we're just coming up to wrapping up things. Your blind spots are Microsoft product licensing. Yes, that's true on that. Where do you get all your knowledge here? You're getting it from Microsoft Learn, Pluralsight, IW Mentor, which I believe is Laura Rogers, isn't it?
Yep.
Warren Buffett. I didn't realize he's into SharePoint. This is the Warren Buffett here, is it?
Yes, this is the Warren Buffett. I'm actually into stocks too. I enjoy,
right. Okay.
Getting more knowledge and investment strategies and where Warren Buffett is investing. Okay. I really like to.
Bitcoin's gone up quite a bit in the last month. I would say that. Yes.
Yeah, I started a little bit on Bitcoin, Shiba Inu, Cardano. There were a couple of good names, but yeah, I'm like a little bit more aggressive investor. That's why I like to follow Warren Buffett also.
Right. Okay. And finally, you actually have this YouTube channel called 3 Golden Peacocks. What is this?
This is an interesting story. There is a program called Kidspreneur here in Brookings that they do every summer for kids. And this was my daughter's idea. I really wanted to do that Kidspreneur thing because they initially start with what you are passionate about, what are you interested in? These are really intriguing questions that they ask the kids. And that's where my daughter came up with the idea of starting her own business. And she named her business as 3 Golden Peacocks. So I kind of stole her name. But
hang on, how old is your daughter?
She's 14 and she is right now at International Science and Engineering Fair in Dallas.
Right, and she's already setting up her own business. I'm impressed. Yeah, this is good stuff here on this. Have you got a slot on her for Shark Tank or not?
Well, we'll see. I am excited to see them. Yeah. So back to that 3 Golden Peacocks channel. I am more into traditional Indian cooking, and she is a great baker. She bakes really good stuff. And I was like, if you'll go to college and I want to try out some of your recipes, maybe you should put them on your YouTube channel and I can see them. And if you want some Indian cooking, then you can see what I'm putting there. That was the whole idea.
I see. Very, very cool. I might check this out actually on this. Yeah, I'm looking at the videos right now. All right. Spicy, sweet, spicy raw mango curry. Very nice.
Yes.
Day fitness channel. Okay. Low calorie buttercup soup. Okay. So you also not only got, it seems to be health conscious as well.
Yes, we are a little bit health conscious, not overly, but I like to enjoy food, but then because I don't want to compromise on food, I have to take care of my health by, going for walks, playing badminton, playing tennis. We do a lot of fun activities over the weekend and pretty much all the time. Whenever we get some free time, that's what we like to do.
Right. All right. Very, very cool. Okay, Ritu, thank you so much for your time. But for good chatting, and thank you for being part of the show for Teams Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me. It was a wonderful experience.
All right,
Have a
no
good day.
problem. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.